Oh, bird. Hey there. Hi, everybody. Haven't seen me a while. Haven't been around in a while. And I wanted to just kind of come in real quick under the wire and just let you know. It took me a while, but I have upgraded my internet. So I am really hoping that we don't have a in the middle of this. Hi, Amy. I just wanted to do this live just to kind of fill you guys in on some of the stuff that's going on. And one of the things I'm doing, because I am going to be making some changes to the channel, just because I think it's time, but I'm not going anywhere. First of all, I just want to announce the couple things that are going on. Chris Boston! Yeah, right? I know. I just upgraded my Wi-Fi, so we hope. So a couple things I want to just let you know. I am now going to start a zero tolerance for meanies. So what that means in a sense is if you say something mean about me or to me, or anybody else, like if you say somebody's stupid or what have you on the feed, it's just not, I'm not going to delete. I'm just going to banish. Like it's just going to be banishing you into the kingdom. Part of the reason I need to do this is because it's totally fine to have an opinion, but I have to stick with say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean. And I think you guys really get that, where I think if I tolerate that kind of behavior, then it's not fair to any of you. And one of the things that's very interesting, somebody said to me the other day, it was on a feed. She said, and and yes, I did get the book, and I'm going to talk about it. So she said something about, from a Christian point of view, she said, how can you defend the idea that men are inherently evil? And I said, I don't need to defend anything I don't believe in. So, it's funny because for me, all of the esoteric arts, tarot and all that, they don't take it like you're bad or anything's bad, really. It just tells you energy you have to like deal with in your life, but there's nothing evil. So I think it's really interesting. Hi, Red Like Wine. I know, Letters from Lucifer is what it should be called. I was going to talk about this, what I'd like to do with the Chris Watts book. I am reading it, and I've been taking some notes because there are some things in here that I think are inherently dangerous in terms of, and one of the things I want to say too is that, when people jump on and they say, yeah, you're giving him supply, it's like, that's a lingo that another YouTuber friend of mine uses. And I'm like, that's fine. But it's kind of like, do you really know what it means? And so part of what I'm trying to do as I read this, as I talk to people, and I think you guys get this, that one of the things I really don't want to do is I don't want to just say, well, that person's a sociopath and that's it, or that person's this. And not only because I'm not an expert in that arena, but also because I think that just kind of says, well, that's a closed topic. And I think what's more important here, as I'm really getting into this, I want to hear what you guys think. And I'm going to throw this thought out there, and I'm going to do a pre-record on this because a lot of people are saying they'd like that better, Couple things I want to say. Yeah, there's poor grammar and all this, but here's what I'm going to say. When I'm reading this and when I'm vibing into this, I think there's a real danger with, acknowledging that someone like this has found God. Because one of the things that all of my Christian friends have always told me is that the devil knows scripture really well. And when people always start to quote scripture too much, I start to think about, really? I don't know that I buy it. I think, yeah, I do agree. I think one of the things we're looking at here is there are pieces of this that are moving toward, I agree, an appeal. I think he does get naturally 3 or something, but I don't know if he signed a waiver to that so that he didn't get the death penalty. I don't remember. I'll have to go back and look. But a couple things that came up for me in this, and I'm just going to share about this. 2 things you guys need to know because the changes that are coming to the channel. Number 1, I am going to do the weekly true crime, and I think I'm going to do it as an upload on Tuesdays. And I think that this is going to come in a couple weeks as I'm making some changes in my company. And the other thing that you're going to see from me is on Thursdays, I think I'm going to do my Tori Talks, because there's some very important things that I feel that, a lot of the crime cases are bringing up for me. Also, when I was in Florida last week, like I've been away and traveling and stuff. When I was away, I met a really cool this guy, Frank. He's an old Florida newspaper guy, and he actually has been on oxygen for some of the cases he covered. I'm going to be bringing him on, and we're going to be talking about some of the cases he covered in Florida, and we're going to be talking about the stuff in some of his true crime books. So I think it'll be really fun to have people like that coming in. And I did hear from a lot of you. I think it's kind of like, True Crime Tuesday, and then it's going to be Tori Talks on Thursday. And then if I want to pop on at some point and say something, that'll be, just hey, something's pissed me off and I'll tell you guys about it. Or I may be just doing my nails on Sunday morning and jump on or something, and 2 of you can watch. But I want to kind of give you a little bit more of a structure going forward so we can kind of really start to build what we're working on together, which is an understanding of crime in a way that's outside our current frame of reference. And so that said, I want to talk about this book just a little bit. First of all, I really think that the woman who wrote the book is not an expert. I feel like as a writer, on a scale of 1 to 10, I would say she's about a 6 or 7. She does the job she's supposed to do. But I feel she was trying to ride the line between Shanann and and Chris, and I feel like something I really want to come across with in talking about this is, I think we really, people have been saying, oh, but the Rusheks, the Rusheks need the time to heal, and I'm like thinking, yeah, but you know what? The only way I've ever found, this is my own thing, and I've lost a lot of people in my life. I have to tell you that, oh, thanks for, yeah, just block that person. Thank you. Thank you guys. Boy, these mods, you guys are on it. The thing I want to say about Chris Watts that I think is super important is that he is unimportant. What is very important in this is that we really come to understand how, who Shanann Rushek was, and also really honoring her legacy. When my father died and I was flying home after that experience, I was sitting there on the plane and I had this moment. It was a choice moment. And the moment was, I can completely destroy my life and really allow myself to just be in complete grief for the rest of my life and do nothing. Or I can really honor his life by fully living mine. And so what I want to say to you is that I feel like this is about fully living our lives because Shanann lived. And if we really look at it that way, if we take it from that point of view, here's the thing. You guys need to know, people are like, oh, you're making so much. I'm not making that much money. I mean, So that's part of why I haven't been on here this much, because I've got to go make a living. But one of the things I want to say to all of you is that, and this is super important, we really need to really accept that the idea of death, when someone dies, we need to find our way to honoring the love we lost. And that doesn't come quickly, but it does come from a decision that I'm going to be a better person because that person lived. I am going to fully, just jumping into, jumping into life so fully. And, a lot of I think part of this is also, in my world, I was inspired by Shanann. I felt like here she was dealing with some illnesses, and, she was very protective of her children. She was a great mom. And I feel like when I read this, I'm going to tell you something. I don't think it was the devil that overcame Chris Watts. I think it was lust. He wanted his girlfriend. He didn't want debt, and that's it. And now it's like, now he's found God, and he is just, he's going to help people through God. I got to tell you, I don't know about you, but I think this guy is the last guy I would trust with salvation. So I just really want to say that, that's something that I see. It is bullshit. Thank you, Dawn. The thing I want to say about this, and there's a couple, you guys are going to laugh at me, but I'm like circling stuff because there's things that I think are in here. And this was really, one of the things she says in here that I think all of you, this will validate a lot of things from that we've talked about over this past 2 years, really. She says that she really feels Nikki stalked Shanann. And I think a lot of you said that, and I think that's really true. I do now believe that Nikki knew from the first moment that she wanted this guy, and she was gonna go after him. And so, one of the things I want to say, and you guys understand this, our thoughts change, they evolve. But one thing that I always felt is that he killed the kids in the house. And he did try, he says in here, he thought they were dead. He killed them in the house and he thought they were dead. And then they were like, So the thing I want to say about, and I want to be careful about Nikki as well, because I think that he's starting to really cast her as, oh, she was the one who made me evil. Dude, I'm sorry, but you had a choice. You had a choice to go, this is dangerous for me. You had a choice to do that. Now, one of the things he did say in here is that he didn't feel safe sharing with Shanann because he felt she was going to be mean to him. Well, I'm sorry, dude, get over that. You're just going to have to deal with it. Let me just, yeah, I think I agree with you, sensible crime. I think the order of the murders wasn't important, but there is something to it in terms of the energy and his planning. Okay. It really, and there's stuff about Nikki that I can't say, but, okay. Let's see, Cindy and her mother. This is interesting. I want to say this to all of you. This is fascinating. Okay. In the book, she says, Chris was really raised by his grandmother, Cindy's mother, right? But check this out. Cindy and her mother did not get along. Living just down the street, the mother tried to control Cindy, tell her how to raise her children. Although his grandmother was extremely negative, that didn't rub off on Christopher. Sometimes I think I love that laymen are writing this. This woman doesn't know anything because I'm sorry, if you're around somebody negative, it rubs off. And I think that's, hello, it is kind of, now we're starting to find out he was raised by the grandmother, who, by the way, was the only family member who came to the wedding, right? It's, Cruz Boston said, do you really believe the girls? I do believe that he choked them and he thought they were, he smothered them and thought they were dead, and they weren't. I do believe that, because I feel like a lot of intuitives, a lot of people, I kind of take it with a grain of salt because I think too much, but I always felt he tried to kill the kids in the house. And because it would make so much sense. Why would you kill your wife and then just take the kids to the batteries? It didn't make sense. And he planned this. He was planning this for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's what this is saying. It's like, Yeah, intergenerational, Emily's saying, yeah, intergenerational issues here. And I talk about that a lot in my work. But let's see. This is another thing. Check this out. Christopher went to a Baptist church when he was growing up. His religious teachings made him fear he would go to hell if he died while sinning. So he didn't die while sinning. He killed everybody else so they wouldn't know of his sins. I mean, this is just like, come on, 101 kind of crazy, right? It's like, anyway, yeah, I think that, so we talked about that. And then this is really interesting. How many, like, do you guys remember which family had a bankruptcy before? Was it the Watts or was it the Rusheks? I can't remember which family. And we know Shanann did, but, you know, let me tell you something. It's like, I don't know about blowing up the site. I don't think that he was going to, this is my opinion, Hybrid. I don't think that he was going to blow up the site. That kind of gets into like more of a conspiracy thing. Don't get me wrong. I want to kind of stick to, and the reason I'm looking at this, the reason I'm talking about it is more along the lines of having us really kind of have an understanding of the legacy for Shanann, to like really look at this guy and like, you know, I'm trying to explain it in a way that makes sense, but I have been in a very in a dangerous relationship. I haven't talked about it. I really don't want to, because honestly, I just don't. I want to stay under the radar with that guy. But I want to say to you about that you feel it. You feel it. And, you know, she felt it. She and her mother, very intuitive. You know, it's really an interesting thing that this was what was going on, you know, that there's that kind of, but anyway, I digress. Okay. So the point I'm making, his mom purposes are, yeah. Okay. The ice cream, they all make up different stories about the ice cream. Let's see. I still have some, like, because we know what Cindy is, I still have some compassion, empathy for Chris. Does that make sense? Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think the thing is that I know this is terrible to say, but I don't think there's anything in this that isn't tragic, except for me, I do not believe that, you know, it's like Flip Wilson, the devil made me do it. No, the devil didn't make you do it, loser. You did it. You planned it because you wanted to have what you wanted, because you had a taste of lust. And all of those biblical teachings did nothing for you because you didn't follow the golden rule, you know, and you really, and this is what really gets me annoyed. I know, Flip Wilson. Okay, so a couple things here. So this is what she was talking about with Chris. She says he had his own apartment, good credit, was good with money, and was always responsible with his bills. The Watts family was good with their budgets, and they lived frugally. They taught him well. I don't know. Yeah, you know, listen, I'm going to tell you something. Chris saying Nikki was into dark things, that's almost, I mean, really, that's the pot calling the kettle black. You know, he went after that, you know, and yes, she pursued him, and yeah, that's wrong. But like, I'm sorry, which one's married? Oh, that's right. Now, I think Nikki definitely, I don't think she was a healthy person. And I think that she did a lot of lying, but I'm not talking about her. I'm talking about him, because you know what? I'll tell you what, you know, when I had that unhealthy relationship, he scared me so bad I became nice. I mean, I have to say, because it's almost like scared straight. You know, I think it's like, it's just, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Momac. I think the thing is that, you know, Nikki fed into the lust, but at the end of the day, yeah, I agree with you, sensible crime. I really do. The idea that Chris was grown up. And let's see, this is something I wanted to see. Yeah, you know, it says here, and this really got me, by the way. I really got mad over the sentence, so this is just me. It says, and it kind of picks up mid-thought, but you'll get it. They were cheated. She's talking about the Rusheks. They were cheated of being able to experience those things. She's referring to the grandchildren growing up and going to college and all that stuff. And she says Shanann will never get to experience being a grandmother, holding her first grandchild, or growing old with her husband. I can't even believe you'd say that. Like growing old with her husband. Like this is the guy who murdered her. I mean, just some of the things like that, just to try to sound poetic, end up sounding like really trashy. Okay. It is all on him. Let's see. I do want to say, yeah, he is sure. Oh, this is interesting. He told his mom on the last time he saw her that he and Shanann would be separating. Cindy told him that day she hoped he wasn't seeing someone outside of his marriage. He assured his mother he was not. He was deceptive even then, but that is not unusual during an affair. Here's the thing that gets me like a little bit confused here. Wait a minute. There was that alluding that he had told Ronnie, but Cindy was like, I hope you're not having an affair. That just seemed really odd to me. That just seemed like a non sequitur, like what's the truth there? And I don't know that we'll really know the truth, but I think one of the things you have to look at is the rhythm of the way he's speaking. And in this book, it's just, I mean, I'm sorry for those of you who are Christian, but it's kind of like scripture. Like, don't take that the wrong way, but it's like using God's name in vain. Okay. It's kind of like using the Lord's name in vain. I really feel like, when I hear this and I hear people go, well, and there's some people say, well, he found God. It's like, no, he didn't find God. He just found another excuse, and just remember, everybody, that the devil knows scripture better than anybody else. It's kind of like that old joke. There was an old joke a long, long time ago was, when people wanted to be, in the old days, it's like, oh, Russians, the fake people coming to America, right? And they would do, well, who was the first World Series, blah, 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 whatever. And they always joke that people who knew the answer were really the spies. And the people who didn't know were the real Americans, because there is a thing of like, quoting scripture to such a degree tells me that it's not real. There is no redemption in what he did. And, for him to be talking about like, in this, I just put, hold on. I wrote a note here. I said, oh, here it is. Maybe it's because they're trying to find a way to make sense of it. She's talking about the people talking like us on the internet about it. Many of us want to see this evil person in prison for the rest of his life. Many would have chosen for him to have the death penalty. It's not easy for people to let go of what happened. Maybe it's because they're trying to find a way to make sense of it. Christopher says maybe people can relate it to their lives, that they could be one bad decision away from a tragedy. Are you freaking kidding me? Really? You want to prevent people from doing this? Then tell us the truth. I know there's no real regret, and this is the thing, when we look at this, I think that, he's using scripture in such a way. And this is the thing, when somebody said to me, how can you defend this? Because don't you believe all men are evil? And how do you defend that? And I'm like, I don't have to defend anything I don't believe in. So I don't believe in the idea that people are evil inherently. And that's what this is coming from. So therefore, if he's coming from an idea of all people are evil, right, and they need to repent, then he's just going to repent himself. He's like, oh, I'm off the hook now. And I've got to tell you, that bothers me. Do you know what I mean? It's like, here's the thing, Annie, and I think you made a point. I think Joseph just said it. There's no source of evil, only wellness. Let's see. Christopher knows he is required penitence. He owes Shanann, and he goes on, but his biggest penance is to God. He's paying for the crime with the rest of his life. I think that we have to look at this and say, I mean, at least for me, this is only, and again, I think we have to look at, the idea of, and here's the thing, I don't know, and somebody's just said this, I don't know about Cindy. I haven't read the full book. I'm just kind of I'm stepping into some of the things that stood out to me that I really feel he's using the Lord's name in vain. And I got to tell you, the more I read this stuff, the more I go, I'd rather be reading tarot cards than this, because this is not authentic. His whole line of thinking, for him to say, oh, well, I should have turned around. Yeah, dude, you should have turned around, But anyway, and she's talking about, this is it. Now, here's another little seed, everybody, that I think you'll appreciate. She talks about Shanann working for Thrive, and she's talking about the amount. Sweetheart hates Jews. What's that, Dank? What does that mean? Okay, hold on. I don't understand that. That makes no sense. Okay, could somebody delete this? Let me look for it. Hold on, I'm sorry. Thank you, Cruz. Thank you. Yeah, just let's ban that guy. Let's see. He's trying to say that Shanann stopped taking her medication when she started Thrive, and it really helped her. But she's trying to insinuate that Chris was taking double and triple doses of this. And I think a lot of us, a lot of people were saying, oh, it could be affecting him. But I think, again, these are just excuses for bad behavior. If I was taking so much and getting only 3 hours of sleep, I don't know about you guys, wouldn't you stop? Seriously, wouldn't you stop taking, exactly, appeal. Wouldn't you stop taking something if your sleep was being affected? So I think that's, AJ, love to see you. So good to see you. There's a couple things. Okay, here. This is what I said to you guys about Shanann marrying beneath her. Now, I said this in a prior video, and I think it ended up being a podcast, but he knew where his place was. He stayed in the background. He didn't speak up. He didn't come forward. And then Chris realizes he didn't mind being in the background anyway, and honestly, trying to keep up an appearance was kind of embarrassing for him. Christopher had become background noise, and this is what she says. It's very harmful when this happens to a person, and soon everything will have to change. His rage was building, and his choice to choose an affair, he is still blaming Shanann, which is telling you all along, oh, I can't talk to her. Well, then, something, dude, grow a pair and talk to her, because it's I just feel like it's a big poor me, it's like a big, come on. And then now Nikki says, Nikki was definitely chasing him. She knew he was married and had 2 girls, but in fairness, she was told by Christopher that he and Shanann had both decided to separate. And I think that the whole thing, and many of you already said this, and I think, I think the shadow could have been Dieter. I wonder about this, because many of you have said this, that that video about Chris and being told about the 3rd child, he'd already made his first date coming up with Nikki. And Nikki was the one who kept saying to him that she really felt that she wanted, the firsts, and it's funny because this writer says, well, wasn't being a first affair enough for her? And I thought, well, that's pretty good, but really a lot of you've already said this, the takedown of, let's see. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And I'm just taking the pause because, you have to remember something. And when you read the comments, everybody, you'll see sensible crimes of the men in my family are different. They wouldn't put up with living in a house like that, or, but here's the thing. You used a key word there, and I want to bring this all to you. Men don't do that. Children do that. And so we have to look at the lack of development of this boy. He never grew past the grandmother. And I'm going to tell you something. If the grandmother was controlling and mean to her daughter, she was that way with her grandson. So there's something that's going on that doesn't make sense to me at all. It's not kind of like, it's like, it just doesn't make sense. Let's see. What did he think about them? He felt very guilty. He felt guilty about the kids. Nikki says she wanted to give him a son. Well, we know all that. The thing is that, let's see. Now, this is the part somebody mentioned earlier, and I'm not sure, Sensible Crime, if this was you. Yes, and I agree with that, Tiffany. It says here, he says, Nikki had a group of friends he says were involved in some very dark things. What does that mean, Chris? Where did these friends come from? First of all, we saw Nikki's friends, didn't we? We saw texts from them. We kind of got a sense of them. He never met any of them. How does he know they're involved in dark things? See, I think some of you are saying this. It's like, yeah, and this is the point. Sensible Crime, yeah, right on. What is darker than killing your family? I'm sorry, but you know what? I'm going to be honest with all of you. I've never heard, and this is just me, I've never heard of anybody who uses, any tarot or anything like that, and then is a dark art. A dark art is something that is really inherently evil. Most people who do that are just really, it's like pagan. They're involved in the earth. They're involved in life. I think we have to get away from evil and good and the thing of this guy was selfish. He murdered his family because he wanted to be free. He just saw no other way. It's yeah. He's such a liar. Thank you, TKO. He's a total knockout. All right. Pay attention to okay. All right. Oh my God, he quotes Proverbs here, and I've got to tell you, I almost needed a bucket to lose it in. Let's see. This is interesting because we hear one thing from, one of the things I want to say is that we hear a lot of different things, but in here it really gets to, and I think this supports Shanann's view of it, which was that she gave Jamie the invitations for the shower, and I think Jamie threw them away because it says here that the next day, Shanann, that most of the friends didn't come. Shanann made some phone calls and found out her friends never got an invitation. So Jamie was accused of never mailing them out, and Jamie says she sent them. You know what? Another liar. And I'm going to tell you this. I really think that, hello, just... I'm going to say something here and I want y'all to notice what Tiffany said about the reason for allowing the lady to make this book is to stay relevant. I think this is my thing. I think this is to show how this is going to sound terrible, but I really think that Christopher Watts believes that we are going to follow him in Christ. And I got to tell you something. I don't know about you, but if I were a full-on Christian, I'd be cringing under the bed right now. I'd be like, oh my gosh, he's put Christianity back 20 centuries, come on. Please don't use God's name in vain. It says it. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. And he repeatedly does this. He repeatedly is using it. He's using anything he can, okay, to minimize his own actions by saying, oh, the devil made me do it. And everybody's going, and I've got to be honest with you, I'm seeing, and please don't, I don't mean to offend, but I am going to say this. I think it's there. Even some Christians I know are going, well, it is the devil at work. I go, no, it's not the devil. He had lust and he went for it and he killed his family and he's beyond a monster. He's beyond. Let me tell you something. A monster is someone who kills his family. That's a monster. But throwing your children in a vat of oil to make sure they're dead, that's not a monster. That is beyond, okay? That is just so heinous. I got to be honest with all of you and say, I don't get it. It's like, and here's the thing I want to say about this. Because he says it. The reason he put them in the vats was because he wanted to make sure they died this time. Because he did try to kill them at the house. They didn't die. He then smothered them both and threw them in the vats because he wanted to make sure they were dead. And I'm going to tell you something. We can say he is evil, but I'm going to tell you something that I really see. I don't think the devil came into him. I think he's been the devil all along, and I think he was groomed to be that. And I think that if we honor Shanann's life, it's to really understand. This is my thing, and I want to share this with all of you. I think we want to honor Shanann's life by saying, don't ever marry beneath you. You know, I was working with somebody today, and she's I had a client, and she's going through a hard time. And the thing is, because her husband decides he wants to leave, and I said to her, thank God. Oh, by the way, I upgraded my internet so much that, like, I'm telling you, I practically have a little guy steering right there. I just said, give me the highest one. So I shouldn't be off the air at all. I say that right. But, the truth is, I said to her, because she was like, oh, but, suddenly after all these years, he said he's not in love with me and he wants to leave. And I said, let him leave. And she's like, well, do you think he's going to come back? And I said, let me ask you something. I'm going to ask all of you this for a minute. Here's the thing that we can look at with those final hours, those final days with Shanann. And this is the biggest thing for all of us as a takeaway. And it's kind of like bedtime reading. I'm going to put a bookmark. I got a little bookmark in. And I'm going to continue, and I'm going to break the book down as we go. I want to read it with you, not just, thank you. Emily said, all caps, let him leave. So she was really in this, I don't know, I've been a housewife. And I said to her, listen, she has a daughter. And I said to her, if your daughter was married to someone and he came home and said, I don't love you anymore, and your daughter came to you and said, oh, I just hope he comes home, would you look at her like she'd lost her mind? Yeah, I would. I remember when my best friend years ago, her husband left her, right? And he was a schnook. I worked with him in TV in New York. I hated him. He was the kind who wore leather pants, okay, in California. You don't need any further explanation on that, do you? I guess we can go into it, but no. Anyway, I hated him. I didn't hate him, but he was just, let me put it this way, he wasn't my cup of tea, all right? Phony is just not in my vocabulary with friends. So she came up, she's crying because we were in the same building, and she said, he says he doesn't love me anymore. I said, oh, thank God. Come on in and have a seat. And we're going to sit down and we're going to drink. This is my drinking days. And boy, I got to tell you, she was like, oh, but is he going to come back? I said, I hope he never does. And she looked at me. I said, it's the best thing that ever happened to you. Here's the thing that really, where he deceived at such a level. People get an exit attitude, everybody. They get that exit attitude. And I said this, because I have an assistant who's fabulous. And I was driving up from Florida with a friend of mine. We went to this conference and we're driving up back. And I said, oh, I think my assistant would have put her what do you call it? Resignation in, because she works for a company that I hire out. And she said, what do you mean? I said, oh, she's going to resign. She said, resign? What are you talking about? I go, hello, psychic. Here's the thing that I think Shanann was too. I think she was very intuitive. Obviously something was wrong, but he didn't tell her. You see, his plan was just to kill her. He didn't even care at that point. His plan, and this was by the way, before, and it says it in the book, and before he even went there, he planned to kill her. That was already in his mind. And I don't understand the madness. One of the things that's really hard as an intuitive, and this is, as an empath, I don't live in that world of trying to figure things out, because I think it's a lot of trouble. Let's see, those babies, and left his, yeah, I agree with you. Here's the thing, and I want to really defend Shanann in this. I think Shanann really didn't understand what she was involved in. And I don't know if you've heard the story, and you probably have, you guys, about you put a pot of cold water on the stove and you put a frog in it, and you could turn the heat very low. The frog will boil to death because it has no sense of heat and cold. I think in some ways when you are in a relationship that's very dangerous, this is what happens. And I think some of you heard me early on say, I don't believe the girls were meant to die. And I think that's kind of a big thing. I think that they didn't die that first time. And I just can't even get into the cruelty of this man. I just can't. But I'm reading this because I want to have, this is for me. I want to have a complete sense of what's coming out of his mouth. And one of the things I do when I work with clients, when I work with people, I work with what they're telling me energetically, and then I help them see what they're saying to help shift their life. So, when I talk about Shanann, I really want all of you to really get that, she was someone who had lifted herself out of a dark place in her life. She had 2 on the way to 3 beautiful children. And the reality is that she would have been okay leaving him. She would have. She may have been heartbroken for a while, but bye, Emily. But she would have been, thank you. She would have been somebody that really, I think, picked up the pieces. And so what I want to kind of leave you all with this in this evening is to say, I'm really going to do, an upload on Tuesdays. I'm going to do some stuff on this. I really want to cover, and the reason I want to cover it, because I want to be clear with all of you. I think when Frank Rushek said to all of us, he said, what's the message you want to send out to people? And he said, tell the truth. Tell the truth. In other words, he didn't want people attacking his daughter. He doesn't want people attacking her. So when I see that on my feed, when I see someone say something bad, I literally just block them. You're off. I don't want to hear anything bad, because that's something that really was important to him. And I feel to honor them, it's really important that we just say, let's say the truth of what's revealed. I don't want to hear conspiracy theories. There are lots of good channels on that. Go over there. But I think we're really looking at, I think the most important thing I can give you in this as a takeaway is to say to you that Chris Watts, he was a boy who never had anything other than what he knew was Shanann. And now he's looking at it and saying, gee, I wish I could go back. And I'm like thinking, you fool. And there's just no other word, and I think, thank you, TKO. I agree with you. I think that one of the things I really want to come to in talking about this again, and I want to say again, or because we're revisiting this because he wants to stay relevant. And I think what needs to stay relevant is not Chris Watts, but Shanann Rushek. I think we have to look at the sacrifice she made for all of us, and a reminder to all of us to never settle for anything less than you are worth. And when I worked with this client today, she was like, oh, and he's doing this. I said, I don't care what he's doing, because at the end of the day, you have to let him be someone else's problem, right? And I'm going to talk more about that. And I really want to get more into our personal value, our personal worth. And where is my new book? You guys, it's coming out in 2 weeks. My chakra book. I'm so excited because I blow all the crap, all the stuff away from the chakra. People are like, oh, chakra. So now when you find out when the chakra actually happened in the West, you're going to be like, what? So, I'm kind of like, because people are going, oh, you're misappropriating, that culture. I'm like, no, I'm not. It's Americanized. And here's when it happened. So I'm trying to find it. Dang it to heck. So I wanted to just say that to you, that I am going to be talking about the book because I feel that we're unsettled. And I think there's something that when we get to it, I think when we get to it, it's going to be, and who said my 2 cents? Judy, she's right. Because I want to say this. I think she's absolutely right. I think that Chris could not stand seeing Shanann successful. I don't think he was going to allow it. And unfortunately, he played her to the point where, And I don't know about you, but any woman who's pregnant, or anyone who's like excited about having a baby, she loves her family, she knows something's wrong, but she's trying to find out. Well, he was a pig and a child all in the same thing. To not have that, man up and say this conversation. But again, I think he resented her. I think you said that. Red Like Wine said that. I think he resented her, and I think the bottom line is that he was going to destroy her because he recognized that he could be important. And the only way he could be important is to get rid of what was more important than him. And that is why it's so, so, so important that we really look at the idea, when we look at selfishness, we talk about being selfish, I think that there is a healthy side of that. But I also think there's a thing of like hating someone because of a role you chose to play. If you didn't want to be that person, then you need to share about it. You need to talk. And he was just like, well, she's going to shut me down and this is what she's going to do. So when I say this to you, everybody, I'm saying this because you see, this is a boy and he's still blaming Shanann. He's still holding her responsible for her death. And this is the thing, and my friend Zoe, who does Live Abuse Free, she talks about, what is it? She talks about source, or what is it? Supply. But what I want to say to you is she's a professional. She knows what that looks like. For me, as more of a layman kind of, I want to talk about it in terms of, sorry, I had another pair of glasses here. Yeah. You know what? I love that, but please don't insult worms. Somebody said he's a worm. I said, but you're insulting worm. I know pigs are so cute. And I think that, and Watts is holding all of us ransom. I want to say something about that. I don't think he's holding us hostage. I think the joke is on him, because I think what's going to happen, and I think this is what I'm looking to do, is to really elevate that Shanann was a wise woman. She had it together. And yes, she had to control this guy because he was completely inept. And I've been there. I don't know about you guys, but like, I don't ever want to be in a relationship with somebody that, forgive me, that is beneath me. And when I say beneath me, I don't mean to sound like I'm hoity-toity, but like at the end of the day, water seeks its own level. So Watts found his level. It was down there. It was down in the basement with that girl, So the truth is that I used to joke with my friends. I used to say there's the woman who lives in the front house and there's the woman who will settle for the outhouse. And Shanann was a front house woman. And I really think that now that we've seen the signs of a man pulling away, I think that's what we need to look at. If you have somebody that you're like, he's not showing up, he's not calling, that's a sign. Listen to it. We don't talk about that enough as women. And I think we really need to honor, right? We need to honor Shanann's intuition, but also we all have that idea. And by the way, those of us are very smart. We think we can like talk some sense into somebody. She really thought she could figure it out with this guy when he wasn't really sharing with her for 2 years. So I think we have to look at this woman, Shanann Rushek, was a wonderful mom. She dealt with a lot of things in her life. And I want all of you, like I really want to, what I want to leave you with tonight is, what are the things you've learned and how have you grown from knowing her? Because I want to say to you, that's closure for the Rushek family. I think if we look at what that, you never get closure on a death, by the way. You don't. I mean, I still have, and it, part of it is, it opens like a rose. A death is like a closed rose, and some people will just sit there and it'll just stay closed and it'll die like that. But for some people, they'll recognize that the process of that loss is honoring how the rose opens and what that person's life was about. And I do want to say, we must go back to remembering that Shanann has left us a legacy. And I think the biggest legacy we can look at, everybody, is never lower your own standards over time. The minute she started to get healthy and she started to see, he was playing the role. We have to remember also, the professionals have said he's a chameleon. Well, that chameleon was giving grandma exactly what she wanted, the good little boy. And so he played that with her. He played that with Shanann. I mean, it just goes on. So I want to leave you all with that thought. Bless much of what you're doing this weekend. I'm sending you lots of light and blessings on the road ahead. And I think that I really want to make these calls, these talks about honoring Shanann and really giving the Rusheks an opportunity to see and to understand that, their daughter, their sister was really a powerful person and had a great impact on many of us. So I really am just saying to all of you that I think we need to look at this, but remember, the criminal here is a man who would never became a man. And he made choices that were disgusting, and he pretended he was a good guy. And this is what the problem is with him. Shanann was never that way. She was just vulnerable to love. And so I want to say that to you. It's like, she was just vulnerable, and we all are when we love someone. So I just want to say that to all of you. Much love to all of you, and I will connect with you very soon. But I want you to start thinking about it. It's going to be Tuesday, Thursday. I'll be doing uploads. Love you guys. Thank you. I'm so blessed that you're around. Appreciate you. Remember, say what you mean what you say, but don't say it mean, and be kind to each other. It'll be better that way. Have a great weekend.